How to discover a woman's past without asking anything. Marcus Aurelius. Stoicism. There is a quiet power in observation. Marcus Aurelius believed that truth does not announce itself loudly, it reveals itself subtly through patterns, habits, and consistency over time. In a world where people speak carefully but behave instinctively, the Stoic understands one thing clearly: words are chosen, but actions are automatic. This video is not about suspicion, manipulation, or interrogation. It is about perception. It is about learning to see what is already visible to the calm, disciplined mind. When you stop chasing answers and start watching reality, people reveal far more than they intend. A woman's past, like any human history, leaves traces, not in confessions, but in reactions, boundaries, emotional reflexes, and values. Marcus Aurelius taught that wisdom begins when you remove emotion from judgment and replace curiosity with clarity. If you remain silent, grounded, and observant, the truth comes to you naturally. This is not about judging her past, but about understanding who stands in front of you now. Because the Stoic man does not ask for explanations, he studies consistency. He does not demand honesty, he recognizes it. What you are about to hear is rooted in Stoic psychology, emotional discipline, and timeless human behavior. Listen carefully, because nothing here requires a single question to be asked. The first and most powerful way to understand a woman's past is by observing how she reacts to emotional calm. Marcus Aurelius wrote that people reveal their character when faced with what they cannot control. A woman who has lived through chaos often feels uncomfortable in peace. When you are steady, composed, and emotionally self-contained, notice her response. Does she try to provoke emotion? Does she create unnecessary drama? Does silence make her anxious? Emotional turbulence in the past often conditions people to associate intensity with connection. Calm feels unfamiliar, even threatening. A woman with a history of unstable relationships may unconsciously test your emotional limits to see if you will react the way others did. The Stoic man does not react. He remains measured, respectful, and consistent. Over time, her behavior will reveal whether she is accustomed to emotional balance or emotional conflict. Watch how she responds when things are simple. Watch how she behaves when there is nothing to fix, nothing to argue about, nothing to chase. People shaped by instability often struggle to rest in emotional neutrality. This is not her fault, but it is information. Marcus Aurelius advised observing without attachment. You are not here to correct her patterns, you are here to recognize them. A peaceful mind does not attract masks, it attracts truth. Pay attention also to how she speaks about emotional responsibility without being prompted. Not what she says about others, but how she frames cause and effect. Does she see herself as a constant victim of circumstances, or does she acknowledge her role in outcomes? A person's past relationships shape their sense of accountability. Someone who has never reflected on their history will externalize blame. Someone who has matured through experience will speak with nuance, restraint, and ownership. You do not need to ask about ex-partners. The Stoic listens for language patterns. Repeated blame signals unresolved history. Calm acknowledgement signals growth. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that people act according to their understanding. Your task is not to judge that understanding, but to see it clearly. The second method is observing her boundaries, especially the ones she enforces effortlessly versus the ones she struggles to maintain. A woman's past teaches her what she believes she deserves. This belief is reflected not in what she demands, but in what she tolerates. Notice how she responds to respect. Does it feel natural to her, or does she seem suspicious of it? People who have experienced inconsistency often mistrust stability. They may feel more comfortable with unpredictability than reliability. The Stoic man offers consistency without explanation. He is punctual, respectful, emotionally even, and unreactive. Over time, this reveals whether she is accustomed to healthy structure or chaos. Marcus Aurelius believed that virtue is proven through repetition. The same applies here. Patterns emerge when you do not interrupt them. Watch how she handles delayed gratification. A person shaped by impulsive environments often seeks immediate emotional validation. Patience feels foreign. If she becomes restless when things move slowly, if she seeks constant reassurance or stimulation, this may indicate a past driven by emotional highs rather than emotional depth. Again, this is not condemnation. It is awareness. The Stoic does not rush intimacy, not because he is cold, but because he understands that time reveals alignment. A woman who has healed will respect pacing. A woman who has not may feel rejected by it. Also observe how she treats consistency in others. Does she value reliability, or does she find it boring? People who grew up or lived around instability often confuse excitement with connection. They may speak of chemistry as intensity rather than compatibility. Marcus Aurelius warned against mistaking pleasure for good. Listen carefully to how she defines attraction. Her definitions are shaped by her experiences. You do not need to challenge them. Simply observe whether they align with a life of balance or a life of reaction. Finally, notice how she speaks about the future in practical terms, not dreams but expectations. People carry their past forward unconsciously. If her expectations are defensive, guarded, or cynical, it suggests unresolved chapters. If they are calm, realistic, and grounded, it suggests reflection and growth. The Stoic man understands that the future is built from habits, not hopes. By remaining present, silent, and attentive, you allow her habits to speak for her history. Remember, Marcus Aurelius taught that the wise man does not pry into the lives of others, he refines his own perception. When you become emotionally disciplined, patient, and observant, people reveal themselves without pressure. You do not need answers. You need clarity. And clarity comes to the man who watches without attachment, listens without hunger, and remains steady regardless of what he discovers. The third way to understand a woman's past, without asking anything, is by observing how she handles emotional accountability in moments of misunderstanding. Marcus Aurelius believed that conflict does not create character, it reveals it. When a minor disagreement arises, or when expectations are not perfectly aligned, watch carefully how she responds internally before she responds verbally. Does she pause, reflect, and seek understanding, or does she immediately defend, deflect, or emotionally withdraw? A person's past teaches them survival strategies. Some learn to communicate, others learn to protect themselves at all costs. A woman who has experienced relationships where blame replaced understanding may instinctively shield herself from responsibility. Even when none is demanded, the Stoic man does not accuse. He remains composed and clear. This emotional neutrality removes the need for defense and allows true patterns to emerge. Notice whether she can sit with discomfort without escalating it. Emotional maturity is the ability to tolerate unease without turning it into drama. If small issues trigger disproportionate emotional reactions, it often signals unresolved emotional conditioning. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. Over time, repeated emotional chaos stains perception. This does not make someone bad, it makes them predictable. The Stoic understands predictability is information. You are not searching for perfection, but for self-awareness. A woman who has reflected on her past will show restraint even when emotions arise. A woman who has not may feel compelled to win, justify, or escape. Also observe whether she apologizes without self-destruction. There is a difference between accountability and shame. Some people apologize excessively, not out of growth, but out of fear of abandonment learned from the past. Others avoid apology entirely because it once led to punishment rather than resolution. Healthy accountability is calm, specific, and proportionate. Marcus Aurelius valued balance in all things. When apology becomes dramatic or non-existent, it reveals conditioning. Silence and observation will teach you more than confrontation ever could. The fourth method is paying attention to how she treats time, especially when no reward is immediate. Time is the most honest mirror of past behavior. People shaped by impulsive environments often struggle with delayed outcomes. They seek quick emotional payoff because patience once felt unsafe or unrewarded. Watch how she responds when plans change slightly, when gratification is postponed, or when progress is slow. Does she become anxious, irritated, or disengaged? Or does she adapt calmly? Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that nature does nothing in haste. Alignment with nature requires patience. Observe whether she respects your time as much as her own. This is not about perfection, but about attitude. Chronic inconsistency often reflects a past where structure was absent or ignored. Someone who has lived reactively tends to move according to emotion rather than principle. The Stoic man moves by principle. He does not chase attention, nor does he punish disinterest. By remaining consistent, you create a stable frame. Within that frame, her relationship with time becomes visible. Notice also how she fills silence. Silence makes many people uncomfortable because it forces them to face themselves. If she constantly needs distraction, stimulation, or reassurance, it may indicate a past where stillness was associated with loneliness or neglect. Marcus Aurelius practiced solitude not as isolation, but as clarity. A woman who has healed can share silence without anxiety. A woman who has not may feel compelled to escape it. Again, this is not judgment. It is understanding. Pay attention to whether she values long-term effort over short-term excitement. How does she speak about consistency, routine, and discipline? Does she associate them with safety or boredom? People often romanticize what they lacked and reject what once constrained them. Her relationship with structure reflects her history. The Stoic listens without correcting. Over time, patterns repeat themselves naturally when not interrupted. The fifth way is observing how she responds to your emotional independence. Marcus Aurelius believed that attachment to external validation enslaves the mind. When you are emotionally self-sufficient, calm, focused, and purposeful, you become a mirror. Some people feel inspired by this, others feel threatened by it. A woman whose past involved control, emotional dependency, or instability may unconsciously attempt to pull you into emotional entanglement. This can appear as subtle guilt, testing, or demands for constant reassurance. The Stoic man does not withdraw, nor does he over-explain. He remains present but unshaken. Watch whether she respects your boundaries without resentment. Boundaries reveal past conditioning more clearly than any story. Someone who has lived in chaos may perceive boundaries as rejection. Someone who has experienced mutual respect will see them as normal. Marcus Aurelius taught that you must stand firm without hostility. By holding your boundaries quietly, you allow her interpretation of them to surface. Her reaction tells you more about her past than her words ever could. Notice also how she handles your success, focus, or solitude. Does she encourage it or compete with it? People shaped by insecurity may feel abandoned when attention shifts away from them. People shaped by confidence respect autonomy. The Stoic man does not sacrifice his purpose to maintain harmony. In doing so, he reveals whether harmony is mutual or conditional. Finally, observe whether she seeks to understand you or to reshape you. The desire to control often comes from past environments where control felt necessary for emotional safety. Marcus Aurelius advised accepting people as they are, not as we wish them to be. A woman who has grown will seek alignment, not domination. A woman who has not may try to mold you to soothe her own fears. Through patience, silence, and consistency, you allow reality to speak. You are not uncovering secrets, you are witnessing patterns. And patterns are the truest record of the past. The sixth way to understand a woman's past, without asking anything, is by observing how she handles trust, when nothing is demanded from her. Marcus Aurelius taught that trust is not built through promises, but through repeated alignment between word and action. When you are not seeking reassurance, commitment, or validation, notice how she behaves. Does she volunteer honesty naturally, or does transparency only appear when it benefits her? People conditioned by past instability often treat trust as a transaction rather than a state of being. They give it strategically, not freely. The Stoic man never audits trust, he observes its rhythm. Watch whether her behavior remains consistent when there is no emotional pressure. Someone who has lived in environments where trust was broken may unconsciously withhold parts of themselves, even when no threat exists. This often appears as selective openness, guarded reactions, or emotional ambiguity. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that fear distorts perception. When fear governs behavior, it leaves traces. The Stoic does not rush to interpret them. He lets time do the work. Notice also how she responds to your discretion. If you are calm, private, and restrained in what you share, does she respect that, or does she attempt to extract information, reassurance, or emotional leverage? A past filled with uncertainty often creates a need to know everything in order to feel safe. A woman who has healed understands that trust includes space. A woman who has not may confuse closeness with access. By remaining composed and reserved, you allow her relationship with trust to surface organically. Observe how she handles minor vulnerabilities. Not dramatic confessions, but small moments of openness. Does she treat them with care, neutrality, or emotional intensity? People often project their past wounds onto present interactions. If vulnerability becomes a tool for bonding, rather than a shared human experience, it may signal emotional conditioning. Marcus Aurelius believed that virtue is quiet. True trust is quiet as well. The seventh and final method is watching how she integrates consistency into her life over time. Past experiences shape habits more than beliefs. Marcus Aurelius emphasized daily practice over philosophy spoken aloud. In the same way, a woman's past reveals itself through what she does repeatedly, not what she explains. Observe whether her values remain stable across situations. Is she the same person when things are easy as when they are inconvenient? Does her behavior shift dramatically depending on attention, mood, or environment? Inconsistency is often the echo of an unresolved past. Notice whether her emotional tone fluctuates without clear cause. Emotional unpredictability is often learned in environments where stability was absent. The Stoic man does not attempt to stabilize others, he remains stable himself. In doing so, he becomes a reference point. Over time, her ability or inability to align with that stability becomes clear. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the soul becomes shaped by what it repeatedly consents to. Patterns of consent reveal history. Also pay attention to how she responds to respect that is unwavering. When you are polite, firm, calm, and non-reactive day after day, does she settle into that rhythm or resist it? Some people feel uneasy when drama disappears because it removes the identity they built around survival. Growth feels unfamiliar to those who never pause to reflect. The Stoic man does not save, fix, or persuade. He simply remains what he is. In that stillness, truth surfaces. Finally, observe whether she is oriented toward growth or repetition. Does she reflect on her experiences with humility and insight? Or does she romanticize cycles that no longer serve her? Marcus Aurelius believed that wisdom is the ability to learn without suffering repeatedly. A woman who has learned from her past will not need to relive it through you. A woman who has not may unconsciously recreate familiar patterns, even when better options exist. Marcus Aurelius taught that the wise man seeks understanding, not control. Discovering a woman's past is not about uncovering secrets or passing judgment. It is about clarity. When you remove urgency, curiosity, and emotional hunger, you give reality space to reveal itself. People cannot hide who they are from time. The Stoic man does not interrogate, he observes. He does not chase truth, he attracts it through stillness. By remaining calm, consistent, and emotionally disciplined, you create an environment where masks fall away naturally. What you see is not a story of the past, but a pattern of the present. And the present is the most honest record of all. Accept what you observe without resentment or fantasy. Act according to your values, not your assumptions. In doing so, you honor Marcus Aurelius' greatest lesson: control yourself, understand others, and let reality be your guide.